on the Career Briefs website. The link will be provided at the end of the webinar. For those of you who have participated in the past, you know that these recordings can be found on the Work-Based Learning Advisory page of the resources on the Career Briefs. Oh, now my computer's not going to cooperate with me. There we go. So for the Find a Job webinars and for all the Career Cafe webinars, we ask that you keep your telephone or your microphone muted. I can usually mute them from this side, but it is helpful if you make sure that you're muted on your side. You will be able to listen through your computer speakers or headsets if you have joined us through voice over IP. If you call in with your telephone, then please make sure your phone is muted. So let's look at how you can ask questions if you have questions. On the top right side of your screen, you should see a control panel that looks similar to this. And if you don't see it, look for these little double arrows, and then you can click on that and it will expand the entire control panel. If you have any questions or comments, you can use the question area to send those questions to me. If it's a technical question, I will respond directly to you as quickly as possible. If it's a question for our presenter, Nancy, I will hold it until the end and ask everyone's questions at that time. So be sure to stick around. So now on to the webinar. I want to introduce today our presenter again from EDD is Nancy Galusian, and Nancy earned a bachelor's in sociology from UCLA in 2008 and then began working with the Workforce Services branch of the Employment Development Department in the LA Ventura Division. In her role as an employment program representative, Nancy provides resources and information to customers, the community, employers, and elected officials. In addition to her position as an EPR, Nancy is also an outstation trainer, which means that whenever there's a new program, new process, or change within the department, she gets to train the staff and managers on that selected topic. Nancy was recently selected by her division to be a super trainer for the new CalJOBS, which is the backbone behind the cafe's Find a Job site. So as a super trainer, Nancy trains staff, management, and partners on the new site and coordinates trainings within the division. Nancy also serves on 3 work groups: Common Measures, Managing Reports, and Veteran Training. And these work groups analyze the CalJOBS site in detail and create new training on the back end. So obviously we have a very knowledgeable and skilled trainer ready to help us learn how to use this exciting new resource. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to change this presentation now over and give Nancy control over it. And let's make sure that her microphone is not muted, and I think it is. So hang on for a second while I get Nancy all set up for us here. And we are starting to see her screen right now. And let's see if I can find Nancy's microphone. Sorry about this. Okay, there we go. Nancy, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
And there's Nancy. Go ahead, Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nancy Galusian, and today we are in episode 3 of our Brown Bag series, and today we are going to discuss employer services. And we'll discuss how to register an employer, how to place a job order, and some things that come in with how to register an employer, such as setting up application questions and a recruitment plan. And just to see what we've learned thus far, in episode 1, we learned what users can do without registering, and that was users being job seekers. And in episode 2, we went over what you get when you fully register onto CalJOBS. Now today, because we are going to enter live information, since I will be showing everyone how to register an employer, I am going to use the CalJOBS training site. So we'll be doing that, and it might look a little different from the site going through from Career Cafe. So I'll show you guys how that looks right now. As you guys know, when you go onto Career Cafe's website and you go to find a job, that is where you would typically access CalJOBS from. And keep in mind, a lot of the students that are going to go on to CalJOBS might already be registered if they ever were on unemployment or if they ever came to one of our one-stop offices, chances are that student has registered on CalJOBS. So there's different ways you can access CalJOBS, whether it's through the Career Cafe website and you go to sign into CalJOBS here, or you go directly to CalJOBS' website, which is the second tab I have open here. I already signed in, but let me just sign out so you guys can see how the CalJOBS homepage looks when you go in straight from the website. So I went ahead and signed out, and this is how the CalJOBS page looks if you go directly through the URL of caljobs.ca.gov. So you can access the same way and get the same information. I've gone back and forth with both the Career Cafe's website, the Career Cafe link, I should say, and through CalJOBS, and it's the same thing. So this is how the website looks for CalJOBS. And today, though, we will be using the training site. So I have already logged in, and you'll notice in red here, well, in a red background and in white writing, it says, this is the training site for the new CalJOBS. It is not for public use. So that way the training site was designed so that we can go ahead and, play with the new site, since as of March the site did change for all of us. It's a way that we get to kind of go ahead and play around with information without affecting any data from CalJOBS. So moving on, I am going to go ahead and register an employer. And please note that if you look at the site, the training site, it does look the same. And it does work just like how the CalJOBS site works. So you get all the same information. It's just the information is false. We input everything in here. So if you look up a job seeker or whatever it may be, it's not a real person. So how do I get to an employer? It's the same as in an individual. You go right here to Manage Employer. And when an employer comes to you, the way we get our employers is they'll just call us, or we already have a connection, a relationship with them. So they'll call us and say, hey Nancy, I have a job order I want to put in the system. And from that point on, we have created a fact sheet, and the fact sheet basically outlines how the job order goes in the CalJOBS system. So it's a step-by-step order. And the fact sheet, you can fax it to them, have an employer fill it out. You can even email it to them. That way when they have a job order open, and then when we input the job order, it just makes it easy to follow, and there's not too much of a paper trail going back and forth, because I'm sure if you've ever experienced anything with an employer, they're typically very busy. So even though employers themselves do have access to CalJOBS, and it is free for them as well, and they can access it at any time, a lot of times they will call us and we'll do it for them. So, but an employer can do it themselves, and they register, and and we'll see how it looks when an employer registers and the different features they see. So as I mentioned, it is free for the employers, and I think in the past I might have mentioned, the benefit of CalJOBS is, since it's through the state of California, the employers you find on here are what I like to say legit. And why I say that is because, anyone can sign up for CalJOBS as an employer, and what makes them unique and what makes them legit is that they have to have a California state tax ID number. So you have to already be, paying taxes and be created, have a business already here in California before you go ahead and get started on CalJOBS. So that way, you can't put any false information on CalJOBS. You have to be, here and have a tax ID and have filed taxes and have everything going for your own business. So that way, that's kind of a benefit, I think, with CalJOBS. So let's go ahead and we'll put a new employer in. So you see the step-by-step process. And when I was saying, when an employer calls you and says they have a job order open, your first step after you get the information about the job order, whether it's you using a fax form that I mentioned, or you just kind of jot down, pertinent information from the employer, at that point you would go into CalJOBS and see if they are already registered. If they're already registered, you go to Assist an Employer, and you would look them up, and once you look them up, you would see that they're already registered. You would go to, and please keep in mind, you'll see here 5 most recent employers you assisted. Now, because it's a training site and we do this in training classes as well, you'll see a lot of weird names for employers or job seekers, a lot of random stuff, and that's just the way people like to create it so that they can remember who they created. So none of these employers are real, so just keep that in mind while you're looking at any of the usernames or employer names. If you were going to see if the employer was already on CalJOBS, you would go to Employers, Manage Employers, Assistant Employer. I always say use the option where it says Show All User Accounts. And the reason for that is because depending on how the employer registered themselves or how a staff member registered them, for instance, let's use Macy's. If an employer used Macy's, they do Macy apostrophe S, or they did just Macy's without the apostrophe, that will trigger your response here. So if you do show all users, no matter however it's entered, no matter how it's spelled, it'll pick up on that whole data. So that's how you would see if the employer was registered. So you would type the employer name here, do show all user accounts, and when you hit search, they would either pop up. And if they don't pop up, that's a good indicator that they are not registered. So here we're going to go to create an employer. When you do create an employer, since I did mention that we need what makes the employer unique is a state tax ID number. It does take up to 48 hours of verification if it's a new employer. And the reason that is our central office, they do a screening to make sure that the tax ID number is correct. And I should say that you might notice sometimes, or you might experience that the employer might not give you the right state tax ID number. Sometimes they give you the federal number. So that can could create sometimes like a little lag time in getting the information. But if you ever do experience that while you are working with employer, we do have a certain program where we could look up the accurate tax ID number. Most of our one-stops do have that program, and there should be someone in each office that knows how to use the program. So if you ever do experience that, feel free to call any of the offices and ask them, to get the correct tax ID number, and we use a program called TAS for that. So like I said, when you first enter a new employer, there'll be a 48-hour hold until the verification of that employer is cleared. And if there is an issue, the way the central office contacts you is because they'll see that, Nancy went ahead and entered the job order, and they have my phone number in there because every login has your name and your phone number that you go ahead and enter in the system. So they'll call you and actually notify you if it was incorrect. So if you don't get a call, you're fine. The old saying, no news is good news. So if you don't get a call, it means the employer state tax ID number was correct and you're good to go. If you do get a call, then you have to figure out what the right number is. So moving on, if you guys have any questions about anything I just mentioned, feel free to ask me, and I'll go ahead and go through them in the end. So this is a step-by-step process on how to enter a new employer in the system. Now, I should say, since the training site, you'll notice where it says my staff info, I only have one option here. So typically, though, it's a larger option of selection, and you'll see your community college listed there, or whatever region you belong to, you'll see it there. But since it's a training site, they just left a few things so that we don't create too much information in here. You would select your office location, and once again, training site, that's all it gives me, but it would typically be whatever office you belong to, or your community college name. Now the login information, it's the username for the employer. So, on our fax form, it gives them the option of creating something. If you're doing it yourself, you can always create something, give it to them, and they'll change it at a later time. So I'm going to go ahead and make up a username. I'm just going to use my name here. The password, it's always going to be defaulted to something. You could always leave it, and the password is where it says a security response question. That's what the password is always defaulted to. You could change it and give the employer that login information with the username you create and the password you create. You know, if you ever are stuck on thinking what to create, I always say it's good to use for the password the street that they're on, or something like that, where it's just something very generic and basic that they could change at a later time. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this information for the login information. And now to the company name. Company name. I'm going to use coffee time because I'm looking at my Starbucks coffee, and oh, look, someone already created that. Isn't that funny? Coffee. Sure. Coffee me up. So here's an unemployment insurance tax ID number. This is a state, excuse me, this is a state tax ID number. And you'll see anything that has a red asterisk, that's a mandatory field that you must fill out. So because it's a training site, I could enter any 7-digit number. The unemployment insurance state tax ID number is a 7-digit number. So the federal number, I believe, is a 9-digit number. So when you see that, that right there should be your indicator that the employer gave you the wrong number. So I'm going to go ahead and write down my random 7 numbers. You'll add a zip code here. Where did we go? The street address. I'm just making up the office I am working out of right now. And once you enter the zip code, it'll go ahead and enter the city that you're in. It'll go ahead and do that for you. That's the primary location information. If you check here, if the mailing address is the same, it'll go ahead and filter it in for you, so it saves a little bit of time. So the contact information, this is, you know, if it's going to be the HR manager that's in charge of this, just a manager, whoever is going to be kind of keeping track of the CalJOBS record or their CalJOBS status, that's a person you would write in here. So the job title, you would just write manager. First name, Nancy. We'll just use my information here. Phone number. And you'll notice that whatever does not have a red asterisk, I'm not going to fill out because it's not mandatory. You can always leave an email address, and the company website, you can always leave that information as well. So when it comes to the company information, you have to search from the industry code, and once you do that, and while I'm here, I do remember that last week we had a question from, I think it was Dave or David, about the ONET code and what digit, if it's a 6-digit or 8-digit, and we use the 8-digit. The system pulls up the ONET 8-digit code, and you'll see that right now when I do my search for my industry. All right, let's do restaurant. You'll write the industry that the company is belonging to, and then when you go ahead and fill that out, it'll give you the full service restaurant, and it'll give you the code. But if you notice, it gave you a lot of options to choose from. So because, you know, every company is different, they might provide different services, so you'll go ahead and see all the options that we have here. Okay, so we go ahead and do that. It'll ask you for the number of size of employees. It says do not disclose if the employer didn't tell you or they don't want to tell you. You'll go ahead and, you know, fill that out, and the type of employer, whether it's private, state, local, federal government, nonprofit, education, right, private sector. Are you a federal contractor? You'll answer that question. Are you ADA compliant? It's not a mandatory question, so you can leave it blank. If the employer wishes to add any company, any information about their company, they could do that here. Whatever. You can fill some information out. Check each special characters that applies at your company, whether it's a union shop or non-union shop. If there are any benefits that are offered, you can say benefits not specified if they don't tell you that they have benefits, or they tell you they have benefits but they don't tell you what. No benefits provided, or if you do say yes, you could check a few things. So we'll say dental, medical, let's do holidays, sick leave, all the good stuff. And then you can go ahead and hit save. And that is it for the employer, for the registration part. Now, if I was to go back, and you'll see here, whenever you are assisting an employer or a job seeker, it'll say currently managing, and it'll give you the name of the person. When it's an employer, it'll give you the company name and the manager's name that you have as a contact person. Sorry, it doesn't have to be a manager, but it'll have the contact person's name as well. And that's how you know that you are currently assisting someone. So when you create the registration for the employer, this is how their homepage looks. Much like when we saw last week when you are assisting a student or a job seeker, they have the same look, and the folders are a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and expand all the folders we see here. To the far left, they have the employer's profile, and this is all information specific to the employer. The middle profile here is the human resource plan, and that's where all the job orders are and the recruitment plan, which we'll go over. And always to the right, even when you're assisting a job seeker, it'll say staff's profile, and that's where we as staff can enter any case notes, and that's where the information goes. So just to scroll down a little bit so you see how the page looks. So this is the general information about the employer, and what I want to show you here is that it says employer access rights pending verification. So until the state tax ID number has been verified, you won't be able, and they won't be able to enter any job orders. So you always want to let them know that if they're a new employer, that it'll, you won't be able to enter a new job in the system, let's say in at least 3 days, until you actually make sure that it's done and that you have the correct tax ID number. So that won't let you go any further in terms of adding anything about the employer, adding any job seekers, or playing around with the system. So here what we're going to do is, that was the process of how to enter a new employer in. So next what we'll do is we'll go ahead and I'll use an employer that excuse me, that I have already created, and we'll enter a new job order there and kind of play around to see what the employer gets when they register on CalJOBS. But just so you see that the pending verification, what it does, I'm going to go to job orders, and when I try to add a new job order, it'll tell me that this employer's access rights prevents them from posting jobs. So it won't let you add a new job order. Even on the training side, because they're trying to show you how it would really be, they won't let us enter a new job order. So from here on, I'm going to go ahead and release the employer. And it's always good when you are assisting, whether it's a student or an employer, that you release whoever you are currently assisting before you move on and assist the next person. So now I'm going to go to assist an employer, and I'll just use because we haven't entered so many easy names to remember, so I'm going to just choose someone from the last 5 employers that we've assisted. That way I know that I'll be able to enter a job order with them. So I'm going to do this option here. However, just to show you how it looks when you do a search, I'm going to select Show All User Accounts, and I'm going to type in the employer name. I'm going to select Search, and it'll show me 2 different. It'll show you as many accounts that have been created with that same username. And then the way you would select them is based on the city that they're in. So if it's Macy's, and you'll find tons of Macy's in the system, the way you know which ones to select is based on the city that you see here. And if we had a longer list, if you select any of these titles here, it'll go ahead and alphabetize that order for you. So it makes it a lot easier when you have a really long list. If I was to select city, it would go ahead and alphabetize it for me, so then I would be able to spot it out a lot faster because it's not in a good order. So I'm going to select this first one here because that's one that I remember we created back a few months ago. So this, if you notice here where it says employer access rights, it has been enabled. So this employer has been verified, their tax ID number was good, and we are good to go to assist the employer. And since we found them in the system, we know that they have already registered in CalJOBS. Oopsies, didn't see that, no problem. So now I'm going to go up here to back to the all the profiles that you see when you are assisting an employer. And we're going to go to job orders so that we can enter a job order. And you'll see on my left-hand navigation it says currently managing Geoffrey in Malibu, and it no longer says the employer I had just created, which was coffee in my cup, coffee me up, or something like that. So you'll see that you only have one person that you are managing. And just to scroll down real quick, you'll see the yellow is whatever we as staff can, whatever we as staff have. And when it gets to this little grayed out or black color, that's the employer or the job seeker. Those are their profiles there. So I'll show you the two ways you can do it, and I hope I'm not confusing anyone. But we as staff will see both options. We'll see the yellow and we'll see the black part. When an employer or a job seeker logs in, they only see this information here. The My Employer workspace or My Individual workspace. That's all that they will see. They won't see anything that we see in yellow. So this is how it looks for the employer. You see it's different, whereas when I do it from my staff workspace, it shows you all those profiles and all those plans and all those folders that I have to expand. But for the employer or the individual's workspace, this is how their home page looks. So it's different when they log in from when you log in. But the information that you enter is still the same, and it doesn't matter whether you do it from the employer side or whether you as a staff member assist them. You'll see that what we did last week when all the different widgets here, that they have the same options that we as staff and individuals, job seekers do. They just have different like recruitment services or a job plan, job order plan, but they still have labor market services so that they can see what the local area is for different industries and special to their own industry. And they still have the education services. So really it's the same, but they just have a different look. So now let's go up, and I'm going to enter a job order. From the employer, they would go right here to post a job. And then I'm going to show you going back to when we are managing the employer. This is how our home page looks, remember, with all the folders that we collapse or expand. And I'm going to go to job orders. It'll show you how many job orders are in the system, and the employer sees this as well. So it'll show you the job order, the job title. This is expired because it has been over 90 days, so the job order, it has been expired, or we close the system, or we close the job order. Whether it's online, the system status, it had a veteran hold, which all job orders have a 24-hour veteran hold. And it'll show you how many job seekers have viewed it and how many applicants have applied for the job. So, it kind of makes it easy for you to see how well the job is doing and how many job seekers are interested in the job. So from here, I am going to add a new job order. The job order takes a little more time than the registration of the employer. So there are a few methods that the employer can do, whether they want to manually enter a job order, copy an existing one, or create one from templates, which you can create job order templates just to keep using from. We're going to just do one from create one, build one up ourselves. So for the job title, I'm going to say it's retail. And it pulls up from ONET, what type of occupation title it really is, so that you can give it the ONET code. I'm going to say retail cashier. So I did retail cashier, and from the job occupation, depending on what you list, you'll notice that the job occupation, it might be a little extensive, so you'll have to select the accurate one or the best fitting occupation for that job title. So this one is fine. We're going to leave it as cashier. Go ahead and select next. What we had done, the reason it's asking for the location of this work site, because it's something we had already created, we used 2 different work sites. So you can create one employer, and if they have several work sites, instead of creating different accounts for each employer, for each site, you can create one account where they have all their work sites located. And then whenever you enter a job order, see, it's asking which one is it for. So it'll make it a little easier when you're trying to look up the employer if it's just one account and different work sites. And you can even list the different managers they have. As you see here, we have one that was, we have 2 work sites and 2 different managers. So it makes it a little easier when you're doing this whole process. So depending on who you had talked to as the employer, you go ahead and select the accurate one. If there's only one, obviously you'd only choose that select one. Go ahead and select next. And if you see up top, it shows me how many steps I have left, and it already created my job order number and with the title of the job order. Here's just some information that already comes kind of filled out for you. Display online to job seekers, yes, of course. Display your company name, yes, and have our staff screen your applicants. And why it's asking that is because we at the EDB, we can screen applicants, do a resume search, we host targeted recruitments, and we do, sometimes we'll suppress a job order so that we can look up qualified candidates for that employer if they need an immediate hire. So that's why you'll see why it says have our staff screen your applicants. You'll list how many positions are open. And you'll see it says max 999, so you have up to that many positions open. We'll just leave it as 1. Earliest date to display this job order, it'll go ahead and obviously have today's date, and the last date this job order will be displayed on the system. Typically, anything on CalJOBS is a 90-day period. Even for the resumes for job seekers, they're active for 90 days. Anything after that, it'll expire, and all you have to do is just log back in and update your resume. But even for the job order, to me, that's a long time to have a job open, and for whatever reason, they still kept it that way. So let's go ahead and make it open for, let's say, like 3 weeks or so. Oops. Can't backdate it. Okay, here we go. If they had an anticipated hire date, you could fill that out, but if you notice, it's not a mandatory field. What type of job is it? Is it regular, seasonal, contract, volunteer, none selected? Of course, we're going to do regular. If it's full-time, we'll say this one is part-time. And why this is saying the anticipated job duration, that's if it's a one-day assignment or a temporary job that will end, within a few weeks. We want to go ahead and list that so that the job seekers, when they're looking up job orders, they have as much information as they can get about the job to make an educated decision if they want to apply for the job or if it's not what they're looking for. If they can't afford to just work, 3 weeks, then that's why that's over there. This question, we get a lot of questions about this little option here, maximum number of applicants you would like to consider at this time, and it says 25, however the max is 9,999, and what this means is if the employer sets up a way to get alerted on the site about how many applicants are applying for the job, that's why this is set up so they don't get bombarded on CalJOBS. However, the job will always stay open, and as many of the applicants want to, they can apply for the job. So that this is only referring to what the system has created if the employer uses it. I'm going to be honest, not too many employers really use all the services that the CalJOBS site has. So why use any kind of restriction because of not knowing? You can create something that might, hinder a job seeker that might be, good for that job. So I always say do it to the max because it's only for the site. Typically, when a candidate sees a job order, they'll see it and the application methods are different. So this is just for the site. If you guys have questions about that, feel free to ask me. But yeah, always do it to the max because it's just, we've told the Sacramento team for CalJOBS that they should take that portion out, but they haven't done so. So here you would add a job description, and because it's pulling from ONET, you'll see that I could go ahead and do an insert sample text, and it'll fill out a little blurb here based on what a retail cashier might be doing at that job. So you can leave it. It's a good starting point, or you can always take it out and add more or make any edits. I'm just going to leave it as is. Here we are on step number 5. And it says for the skill set for that you want to show on the job order, what kind of skill set you want the candidates to have. You can use the default skills for this occupation since it's pulling from ONET. It's going to have its own skill set. You can make one. You can select skills that you could create your own. You can not have anything. It just depends on the employer. I just use a default one because it doesn't take any extra step for you if you're the one entering the job order. Other skills, if there are any special software, hardware skills needed, you would go ahead and say yes or no, and if so, you would indicate what it is here in this box. I'm going to go ahead and select next because we don't have any special skills needed. And here it's showing you all the skills that come with a retail cashier pulling from ONET. And it shows you how many in each category. So general skills, there's 8 of them. If I want to see what 8 are, I'll go ahead and collapse it and it'll show me more that are checked, and I could go ahead and check more if I so have a desire to. I'm going to select next. If there are any hiring requirements, such as a drug testing, any background checks, credit checks, you would select that. But please note, it's not a mandatory field, so a lot of times employers might not want to put that out there on the job order. So you can skip it, and if they do that later, that's up to the employer. So that's not a mandatory field, so we can just leave it blank. If there is a test requirement, if they do a certain kind of testing after the job application once they are selected for an interview, we'll say no test is required for this one. And because of labor laws, if there's a minimum age requirement for the job, we need to know what the reason is. So if you're to say, like, the job you have to be at least 21, if it was because, well, obviously if you're 21 and it's a bar setting, that makes sense. But we do have, because of the labor laws, there are certain things that we have to pay attention to job orders when it comes to age, gender, or if it comes to anything with a person's ethnicity. Those are things that we always pay attention to when we're entering a job order, so it's not any kind of discrimination. If there's a minimum education required, you would go ahead and select whatever the employer says. And if they have a minimum months of experience in the selected occupation, we'll do 6 months here. And you can always view the typical work experience, and it's pulling that from labor market information. So if you don't know, if the employer didn't tell you, you can always use these links as a way to kind of make an educated guess rather than just making something up. If the job is accessible by public transportation, you would say yes or no. We'll say yes because most things are. Is a driver's license required for this position? We're going to go ahead and say no. Let's go to next, step number 8. And here's another tricky thing we have here. There is a minimum salary and a maximum salary. And the maximum salary is mandatory to fill out. Sometimes, it can kind of, you don't know what the maximum salary is going to be often. So if the employer says, your starting wage is 15, just go ahead and leave it at that, because there are times that will say, well, it depends on experience, but as long as you know what the base pay is for that employer, just go ahead and fill that out as a base pay. Basis unit of salary will go, it's $15 an hour. So it's telling me that if I'm making $15 an hour and it's part-time, I've entered an annual minimum salary less than $10,000 a year. So it's just telling me that, am I sure if this is the correct information I'm putting in there. The pay comments, if it's depending on experience. We don't do anything that's just, that's bonus. Everything has to have a salary within CalJOBS for the labor law. Hours per week, if the hours vary, you can do that. If hours are specific, you would indicate how many hours, what hours they will be working, and which shift. So we're just going to do hours vary because it's a, coffee shop and they're open different times. And then the shift, if they're working day, evening, night, rotating, split, we'll do rotating. It's showing you the benefits that are offered again. If you want to make any changes, you can do that at this point. Well, it was showing me a pop-up that my salary was low again, but that's what the salary is of this job. And now here you go to job application methods accepted. So you'll see here saying provide a Quizzin resume. The reason I'm saying Quizzin and not CalJOBS, even though our system is called CalJOBS, Quizzin stands for the California Workforce Services Network. And when we first changed CalJOBS in March, when we got our facelift, it's been called Quizzin. So on the training site, they're still using Quizzin, but it still means CalJOBS. They are used all the time, and so if you ever hear the word Quizzin, know that they're referring to CalJOBS. It's kind of tricky, I don't know why we do it, but we like using a lot of acronyms and same acronym for different things. Who knows? So you can select you can select whatever method is accepted for the application, and you can select as many as you want. So whether you want to provide a CalJOBS resume, whether you want to use an application online, whether it's via email, by mail, by phone, in person, at the nearest one stop, whatever it may be, this is how you would these are the selections you would do. And if you had a website you wanted to go on, you would just go ahead and write the website here. If there's any additional information, and sometimes we as staff will go ahead and add additional information right over here in this box, and that's if we are screening the applicants, we'll go ahead and tell them to come to our offices between certain hours and who to see so that we can screen the applicants for the employer. And that's just a good way to keep the connection and the relationship with the employer by helping them, find the qualified candidate they're looking for and hopefully find them faster than what it may take even when they're on several websites. Here's just showing you that there's a contact information that's required and that we need the education history because we said they have to have a minimum education of high school. If we had any certifications that were required, this would be selected as well. We can create an application question set here on the site for the employer. So if there's certain questions they want the applicant to fill out on the site, they can go ahead and do so, and they can have as many questions as they like. So if they want to know why do you want to work here, or if they have any a screening process before they actually go through each resume, they would add the create job applicant questions. And when you do that, and we're kind of running out of time, I want to show you guys that, but when you do the create job applicant, you can set up any kind of question, whether you want to be yes or no, a multiple choice, a text answer. So it's kind of set up for you to use it in any desired way for the employer to go ahead and help them with their selection process. And then if the employer wants to be notified when a job seeker applies for this job, they'll select yes or no. Typically, it's always no because most of the employers are so busy that they know that they're going to get a lot of phone calls or resumes or applications sent to them, so they don't need to be notified for each time a job seeker applies, but they have the option to. Let's go ahead and select next. So it shows you that the job order upload options, and I've said this before in a few of our other sessions, but CalJOBS, the job orders are from CalJOBS itself, from what we enter in the system, like what we're doing right now. And also spiders from U.S. Jobs and America's Job Exchange. So it's asking the employer if they want it to be uploaded onto those two sites, since those two sites are, their job orders are filtered into our system and are spidered into our system. So the employer can make that decision if they want to. If they don't want to, that's fine too. And any other information about the job, if it's a green job, if you are a federal contractor, if there is a court-ordered affirmative action plan, if it's in an enterprise zone, and if it's a mandatory job order filed in connection with an application to the Department of Labor to employ temporary non-agricultural guest workers in the United States. And these last two is because we have different tax credits for employers if they fall into a certain enterprise zone, and there is something for our agricultural workers as well. They might not even know this, so they might just select no to everything, and they might be in an enterprise zone, but it doesn't affect them in this process here. So I'll go ahead and select next, and that should take us to almost the end of our job order here. Our last step, if we have anything to change. So it's pulling my information in because I'm the one that entered the job order as a staff member. If the employer does it on their own without our assistance, it wouldn't have our information here. So it's saying what office I'm from, the category, that's online, open and available. You will see here that because it's a training site, we're able to experiment with all options. You'll see here that it says staff or job order status, and you'll see that the drop down, you can select different things. It'll always be on a veteran hold. So there's no way that you can select it not to be on a veteran hold. The system automatically does that. So if you see this here, it's because we can close a job order, but the job order will always stay on a veteran hold, and that's for 24 hours. So I am done with this whole section. I'm going to go ahead and select finish. And there you go, and that's a job order, and that's done. Before, I know we only have a few more minutes left, I just want to say one more thing. For a employer to do a resume search, once they have a job order in here, they can go ahead and select for candidates, and they can do it by here in the recruitment plan, the virtual recruiter. If you guys remember from our last session, a job seeker can set up a virtual recruiter, which means that the system will go ahead and run a job search query every week, every month, whatever it may be, based on what the job seeker is looking for. So if it's a retail job, the system will go ahead and notify them every week or every day whenever a new job is ordered, a new job order is in the system. Much like what it does for the job seeker, the virtual recruiter can go ahead and run a weekly or daily or monthly query on the system whenever a new resume has been put in the system, and it has to be an active resume. So I did one the other day that, just so in case I knew that we might not have time, that you can create a virtual recruiter for any job seekers for their resumes. So the system will go ahead and run any job orders, any resumes in the system, and then it'll pull up what is in the system. Remember, this is a training site, so there aren't that many resumes in here that are for the retail sales. But you'll see that it pulled one, and it'll show me the person's name, their location, and their resume title, if their resume is active. And why you want to know if it's active, it means that they've logged in the system within 90 days. So typically if it's active, the person's still probably looking for a job. If it's inactive, it could be that they maybe found a job, they no longer have registered on this, they no longer have logged into the site. So that's kind of a good factor when you look at it and it says active. You know that the person is possibly looking for work actively. If it says inactive or expired, it could be a number of reasons. Maybe they forgot their password, haven't been able to log in, or like I said, they haven't logged in because they have found work. So you always want it to be active. It'll show you the date the last time the individual modified their resume. Another good factor to see, how active they are on CalJOBS, their education level, and their desired salary. So that way, once you see that, you can view their resume as the employer and, determine if you want to call them or not. So that's how they would do how to find job seekers once they have a job order in the system. That's how the employer would do it. But like I said, typically the employers will have us do it for them, or even the job order and find the candidates. They'll just go ahead and call us, and we'll do a resume search for them and basically, refer all the candidates that look like they qualify for the job to them. And you can also go here to the left-hand navigation to where it says Manage Resumes. You go to Search Resumes, and that's another way you can do a resume search as opposed to doing the virtual recruiter. Okay, I know I've said a lot, and I hope I was trying to get some of the most important features of what an employer can do on CalJOBS out to you guys within the time frame we have. If you have any questions at this time, I will turn it over, and you guys feel free to ask me anything you have.
Okay, sorry about that. For a second, I lost my control panel. So this is Kate back, and thank you so much, Nancy, for all that great information. I didn't get any questions posted from anybody for today, so we'll give it a last minute there, unless, Nancy, if you have anything else that you would like to add at this point. We don't have any questions from the audience.
Okay, actually I was just looking at my notes, and I was mentioning how I thought it was Dave, but it was actually Paul from last week. He asked about the ONET code, and I was saying how it's the 8-digit code, and that's for the resumes. But if you notice, the industry code, it's a 6-digit code. But for the resumes, we pull from ONET, and it's an 8-digit code, but for the industries, it's a 6-digit code. So that was for Paul, who had a question about that last week. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, great. Thank you very much. So it looks like still nobody else has any questions. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. And remember that our next webinar will be on Friday, November 1st at noon, and we'll be looking at the resume builder at that time. And in the meantime, don't forget about our other great resources funded from the Chancellor's Office at the careercafe.com and the Career Briefs. And don't forget our social media site, Ning Social Network. So make sure that you're checking in with your colleagues and finding out what's going on. In the meantime, we will get this recording posted on the Career Briefs website. We look forward to seeing all of you again or talking with all of you again on November 4th. So we'll be back to Friday again, November 4th at noon. So see you all then. Thanks, and have a great, I was going to say great weekend, but I guess it's just till tomorrow, right? So have a great day tomorrow then, folks. Thanks. Bye now.